So this is the draft about how to set up the gradebook, and this is just our first attempt. Here we go. The first place I'd start if I'm designing a new course, I would go to my course outline and I would see exactly how I have my gradebook set up. Your gradebook, of course, must mimic this exactly. Whatever you have written here, you have to have in your gradebook. So as you can see here, I have 2 tests, each worth 15 points. Participation for the term is worth 20, and I have 5 essay papers worth 10 points each, which equal 50. 30, 20, and 50 equals 100. So the first thing that I would say, there's 2 lessons here. The first thing is keep your grading formula simple. In this case, students will be able to see very clearly out of 100 how their grades are at any point in the semester. And that is the second thing that I would say. Use a course total of 100 if at all possible. Even if you have to make these little strange like 15 or 20 or 28 or whatever, it just makes it easier for students. You certainly can use totals higher than 100. You can use any number that you want, but I would just recommend keeping it simple. That way students always know how they're doing. So I know what my syllabus, my course outline tells me. Let's get rid of that. I'm going to go to my gradebook. And the way I get there is, let me move this. I go to the administration block. Let me just go to the course. And the course doesn't have to have any content in it to start doing this, but here's what we're going to do. I go to either grades or gradebook setup. If I go to grades, it'll give me the option for setup, but I'll go right to setup. And you'll see here, these are my weekly essays, equal 50 points. My discussion questions are all worth 20. My midterm and final are each worth 15, 15, therefore it equals 100. So what I have to do first of all is I have to make categories. If this was a blank course, none of this would be here. So the first thing I do before I add content or anything else, I go to add category. Categories then let me create these things. Because I looked at my syllabus, I know exactly what categories I need: weekly essays, discussion questions, final exam, and midterm. So I need 4 categories. I click on add category. I write exactly what I wanted to do, and don't worry about any of this other stuff. Let's keep it all default for the time being. I hit save changes, and then those show up. As I'm creating content, for example, if I'm in week 1, and I'm just going to show you how to do this. Let's say I want to add a quiz. I'm not really going to, or anything. I'm going to add an assignment, whatever, I don't care. What I do is I give it a name, a description, and here you'll see where the grade is. It says, where do you want it to go? Grade category. This is the reason that I created categories before I added any content. I can decide where I want to put it. Now, I'm not really going to make this one, but every time I create something, it goes in a category. If you do not put it in a category, it doesn't get graded the way that you want it to without a whole bunch of weird mathematical manipulations. So use categories. So to wrap up quickly, keep your grading formula simple. Use a course total of 100 if possible. Create and use categories. One more thing is about weighting, and weighting is either simple or confusing, but here's how it works. I'm going to go back to the gradebook setup. You'll notice that all of these are worth 100 points. Now, it doesn't matter what number I put. They all could be worth 50. They could be worth 20. They all could be worth 37. The point is they're all worth exactly the same. So what that's called in the settings here is a simple weighted mean of grades. They're all the same. But let's say I want some of those to be worth a little bit more. I'm going to change it to weighted mean of grades, and you'll see what happens now. A little box is going to show up. Now I can change any weights. But here's the key, and this is the confusing part. 1.0 simply means 1.0 versus all the other 1.0s. So right now they're all worth the same. If I change this to 2.0, the first one, it doesn't mean that any of these numbers change. It simply means this one's worth twice what this one is. If I change this one to 4.0, this is worth 4 times what this is and twice what this is. So these numbers here are not points, they're not percentages, they're ratios. They simply reflect what they all are towards each other. So 1.0 is the default. If you want to make something half, it's 0.5. You can do whatever you want. So these numbers are often very confusing, but if you want them to have different weights, and by the way, it doesn't matter what you weigh them, the total points are always going to be 50 anyway, you can do that here. So you don't have to have everything always be the same. Let me get out of here so I don't screw it up. Okay. I'm going to go back to Gradebook Setup because I don't want to save that. One other thing that's very important is that we want to make sure that students can always look at their grades throughout the term, and it will be accurate. So you'll notice here that I have 14 essays which are due is due every week. So if I go up to edit here in the weekly settings category, you'll see if I expand, I have an option here, and that is to exclude empty grades. What this means is if a student has a grade that has not been given yet, maybe it's something weeks in advance, you don't want to grade a 0 into that, because then the students, if they're doing well, will show terrible grades. So if we do exclude empty grades, what that tells the gradebook is don't even count them. They're not counted as 0, they're not even counted at all. One more thing that you might want to do. You'll notice here you have the option of keeping a certain amount. I give out 14 essays and I keep the best 5. Most students will do 5 or 6 or 7 and they'll just keep the best grades. So keep the highest, because that means at the end of the term, or really as soon as they have 5 grades, it'll start to show exactly how they're doing. If they do more, I'll just keep the highest anyway. We are asking people not to use drop the lowest for mathematical reasons, because you have to get all the way until 14 grades in my case to actually start dropping anything. So keep the highest is what we want to use. And in that case, what's happening is the students are doing their essays here, and it's always reflecting the actual grade that they have. So the other 2 points are keep the highest grades if you have a list of things that you want to keep a certain amount from. And the other thing is always use exclude empty grades. It's actually defaulted, but just in case you wondered what that is. Once you're all done with that, this number here should reflect the percentages 50, 20, 15, 15 of everything that you have. Now there's lots more stuff that you can do with the gradebook in Moodle, but this is a very basic primer to get your gradebook set up with the content that you have. I hope that helps.